Okay, Algebra 2, our last lesson in Chapter 6, we've got factoring by grouping and also difference of squares. But when we look at example 1, when it says I can factor a monomial, what you really want to do is see what the greatest common factor is, what the largest number you can divide out of 6 and 4 would be. Now, right now, I think a lot of kids would just immediately say it is 2, and you're right. But listen, as the numbers get bigger, that can get to be a little bit trickier. And what I'd like to do is show you a tool on the calculator that can help you. So it's under math, and it's under number. And, the greatest common factor, what we're actually going to do is go to number 9, the GCD. And then we'll type in our numbers. You can only type 2. And we'll hit 6. But then we're going to hit comma. The comma is right above the 7. And then we type in a 4. And when we hit enter, you get what the GCD is. Okay? What the greatest common factor is. So we're going to pull out a 2. What else can we pull out? An X. Okay? Well, what's left? You see, we're really undistributing. That's what factoring is. We're dividing everything by a 2x. We're dividing by 2. We're taking 1x away. 6x, when I factor out a 2x, what's left? A 3. And I'll have a plus. Then what? 4x squared, I take away a 2x, divide out a 2x, and I'm left with 2x. Now, to check, you can always redistribute. You could always re-multiply 2x times 3, you'd get a 6x. 2x times 2x, you'd get a 4x squared. And that's where you're going. Okay? That's just some basic review. But the factoring by grouping is something that we did in Chapter 5. This is technically review. So that's maybe the best news. Factoring is showing up, but we've done it before. Now, factoring by grouping, this is the last stage of it. Whenever you're factoring by grouping, you will end with 2 parentheses that are identical. They will always be exactly the same, right? So I guess the point that I'm making is, what if I gave you x squared w plus 9w, and, that certainly looks way different than what we just had. But as we're looking right here, if it was just a w, guys, what could I do in regard to what we had just done up above? Couldn't I factor out a w from that? And what would be left? X squared plus 9. You see, here's the thing, guys. Your w is really x minus 1. Okay, so at this point, guys, what we've got is I'm going to pull out an x minus 1, just like I'd pull out a w. Then I'm going to be left with x squared plus 9. Now, super important in this lesson, this is going to show up a lot. We're going to eventually review and see this a ton, the difference of squares factoring. Now, that will show up. It doesn't apply here. Your final answer is what we just had. But that's x squared plus 9. I just want to tell you, if it would have been x squared minus 9, that's the difference of squares factoring, where a squared minus b squared would break down to a plus b times a minus b. That will be showing up a lot by the end of the lesson. And that's why I'm introducing it here. But what makes this a little bit tricky, guys, is that you're going to see that here the x squared is plus the 9, and it doesn't apply. All right, let's take a look at problem number. Okay, factoring by grouping, guys, as we look at 2b, what you're going to see is the telltale marking is that you've got 4 terms. You've got 4 terms, and what you do is you just look at the first 2. Here's x cubed plus 3x squared. What could I take out? What's the biggest thing I could divide out from an x cubed plus 3x squared? X squared. What would be left? x plus 3. Now I'm going to focus just here on those last two, the plus 4x plus 12. What's the largest thing I could divide out from those two? A positive 4. And then what's left? X plus 3. Like I said before, this is maybe the most important thing, guys. These two parentheses will always, always, always be the same. They will never be different if you've done this correctly. So even when I stopped right here with that parenthesis, I could have written the other parenthesis knowing that that had to show up. And it can help you as you're trying to factor things out. But look, final stage here, we've got x plus 3 and x plus 3. I pull that out in front. What's left? X squared plus 4. What's not highlighted in yellow is what I write in my other parenthesis. Now, could I keep breaking down x squared plus 4? No. I mean, it looks like it's just got the two terms, but the x squared plus 4 has a plus in the middle, not a minus, so I can't break that down with that formula. We're about to see that the next problem will, and that's why we got to be real careful. Take a look at example 3 with me. What can I take out of x cubed minus 2x squared? X squared, and what's left? X minus 2. Now, what can I divide out? Be careful. If you start with a minus, you have to pull out a minus. What can I pull out of negative 16x plus 32? Negative 16. By the way, if you're ever nervous about that, if you're saying, I don't know what I can take out, remember you have another tool on the calculator where you could go to that GCD and, it just would take you a minute to type that out. And type in 16, 32. It would tell you, yeah, you can pull out a 16. Now, because it's a minus, you got to pull out the minus. What else is left then? X minus 2. I'm dividing 32 by a negative. It changes. Most importantly, guys, these two parentheses are the same. Always. So what can I pull out in front of everything? Well, x minus 2, and what's left? X squared minus 16. Now, for the first time today, you're going to see that you've got two terms, and they are being subtracted, and they're both perfect squares. This is what we were talking about with the a squared minus b squared. You see that? That's your difference of squares factoring. It's going to start showing up now in every problem. So in the beginning of the lesson, it really didn't show up too much. Now it does. You can keep breaking this down. X squared minus 16. The square root of x squared is x. So that's x times x. And then what's the square root of 16? A 4. I'll have a plus 4 and a minus 4. And then we're good. Okay. As we finish up, look at the directions. It says I can factor out a GCF. We can get that with the GCD if you'd like. And then do a difference of squares. Difference of squares, guys, is that a squared minus b squared is a plus b, a minus b. So you look at 72, you look at 50, you think, my gosh, what's the biggest number I can divide out? And sometimes kids will say, I don't know. Well, I think a lot of kids would think about it and they'll say, you know what, I think you can only divide out a 2. If you got that, you're right. That's the biggest number you could divide out from both. But, look, the calculator would tell you that. So what are we really getting at? I can pull out a 2, what else? And an x. Now, 72 divided by 2 is 36, and I don't have an x left. What's 50 divided by 2? 25, and that's a 25x squared. So now, because it's a difference of squares, I can break that 36 minus 25x squared down a little more. What's the square root of 36? 6. So I got a 6 and a 6. Square root of 25? 5. I'll have a 5x and a 5x. Make it a plus. Make it a minus. And there you go. Okay? It's not that bad once you get a hang of it. Last one. What do you think the greatest common factor is that I could divide out of 16 and 4? A 4. A 4. A lot of times kids might have second guesses. Use your calculator if you're worried about it. What else can I take out? Y squared. I can't take 4 y's away from the last term. I can only take 2 y's away, y squared. And then as I divide that out, 16 divided by 4 is a 4. I had y to the 4th, but I'm taking 2 away. I'm left with y squared. Ooh, what's left here? I'm dividing a 4y squared by a 4y squared. I'm left with a 1. You can always double check by redistributing if you're nervous about it. Remultiply it out. You'll see you're right. But here we go. We got to finish this up. Work out your parentheses. What do you think, guys? 2y and 2y. What's the square root of 1? 1. So one of these parentheses has to have a plus. The other one has to have a minus. And we are done.